Hey, what's going on guys? Welcome back to another video. So in this video, we will explore the RTK query mutation and auto fetching of data. We will see how we can do create, update, delete using RTK query mutations. So if this sounds interesting, then stick around. Also don't forget to subscribe the channel and press the bell icon so that you don't miss the videos like this one. So let's get started. Alright guys, so I'm using the same application code which we built in our previous video, Redux RTK Query Part 1, where we saw how we can create the API using the RTK query and fetch the data from the server and then display it on the screen. Let me give you a quick walkthrough of the code that we have. So this is our folder structure, and inside the source folder, we have created a services folder where we have a contacts API, and we created this contact API using the RTK query create API, and we had two endpoints to fetch all the contacts from the server and to fetch an individual contact from the server. And we have exposed two hooks, which is the use contacts query and the use contact query. And we have used this in our app.tsx, and inside the app.tsx, we are fetching all the contacts from the server, and then we are displaying them on the screen based on the API states like loading, fetching, error, and success. And then we have created another component, which is the contact detail, which uses the use contact query to fetch the detail of an individual contact. Now, what we are going to do in this video is that we are going to create three more endpoints in our API, which will help us to create a new contact, update an existing contact, and then delete a contact. And whenever we want to send some data to the server, we need to make use of the mutations. Let's go to the official documentation before we start writing any code. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to the documentation, and here you will see that what is mutations. So mutations are used when you want to send data to the server and apply changes to the local cache. Mutations can also invalidate cache and force refetches. And we are going to see all this in this example. So here, if you want to understand more about the mutation, you can follow this documentation page. I'm going to add all the links in the description below. So now let's go back to our code. And inside the code, what I'm going to do is first, let's go to the create API. So this is the TSX file where we have created our API, and we have the endpoints. So if you can see, then we have the endpoints, and the first endpoint was the contacts and the other one was the contact. Now, what we are going to do is, if you see here, then these two have the builder.query, because in both the cases, we are not sending any data to the server. We are just fetching the data from the server. So now let's create another endpoint. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to have an add contact, and this add contact will have a builder. All right, and on this builder we have a mutations. So if you can see here, we have a query and the mutation. So in this case, we are going to make use of the mutation. All right, and then what will be the type? So what I'm going to do is, this mutation is not going to return us anything. Like whenever we want to create a new contact, we just have to create a new record, but in the response we don't want anything. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to write a void here. All right, and what it's going to accept is, it's going to accept an object which will be a type of contact. So we already have a model of contact. So if I go here in the models, and if I click here, then you see that we already have an interface which is a type of contact. So that's what we are going to use here. All right, and then I'm going to have the brackets, and inside the bracket I'm going to have the query first. So let me add the query, and this query will have the contact, the individual contact which we want to create, and this is going to be an arrow function. So let me add the brackets, and inside this we are going to have some attributes. So the first attribute will be the URL, which will be the endpoint of our API. So the URL will be the same as this one, so I'm just going to copy this and I'm going to add it here. All right, the next will be the method. So in order to create a new contact, we are going to make use of a post method. So let's add a post. All right, and then we need to provide the body, and the body will be the new contact which we want to create. So I'm going to have the body here. All right, and I'm going to assign the body as the contact, whatever the contact is. All right, then I will save it, and now you see that we have a new endpoint which is the add contact. Let's create two more endpoints which will be for the update contact and the delete contact. So for the update contact, what I'm going to do is I'm to copy this and I'm going to add it here. All right, and instead of add, I'm going to change this to update. All right, let me make this small u. And when we need to do an update, what we are going to do is we don't want anything in return. And instead of that, we're going to have the contact here, which will be the contact object, which we want to update. So what we are going to do here is in the query here, what we will have is we are going to have this contact, but we want to update the contact based on the ID. So I'm going to do a destructure and I will have the ID and then I'm going to have the rest. So I'm going to take out the ID from the contact object and I will pass whatever the rest is. All right. And instead of the post, we're going to have the put method and our endpoint will get now changed to the this one. So we are going to have the contacts slash dollar ID where the ID will represent that which contact we need to update. All right, I'm going to change this to backticks. And what we need to pass in the body is we already have the ID which we want to update. We want to pass whatever the rest is. So I'm going to have the rest here. All right. So when I say the rest, if we go to the model and if we remove the ID, then the rest is name and the email ID. All right. So let's go back here and I'm going to do a save on this. So we have the update as well. The next thing we need to do is the delete one. So what I will do is I'm simply going to copy this and I'm going to add it here. And let's change this to delete. So I'm going to change this to delete contact. This will be the builder.mutation void. And whenever we want to delete any contact, we just need to pass an ID. We don't need to pass the whole contact object. So what I'm going to do here is instead of having a contact, I'm going to pass the ID and the type of the ID will be the string. So it's very similar that whenever you want to fetch an individual contact, you simply pass the ID, which if you go here, we see that when we have the individual contact, we have the ID here. And what we will have here is we are going to have the ID which we want to delete. So the contact, the URL will be same and the method instead of the put, it's going to change to delete and we will not have any body in the delete. So now we have created all the three endpoints, the create, update and the delete endpoint. So when we create the endpoints, the RTK query exposes some hooks which we can use. So if we go here, then let's export the hooks. So the first one will be the use add contact mutation. Then the other one will be the use update contact mutation. All right. And the last one will be the use delete contact mutation. All right. So now we have exported all the three hooks and now we can make use of these hooks into our app.tsx file. So let's go to the app.tsx file and inside the app.tsx file, in order to create any new contact, we need to have a form. But the focus of this video is not to create the form and all the stuff. So what I'm going to do here is that I'm going to create a component and I'm going to name it as export constant and let's give it name as add contact. All right, and this is going to be an arrow function. So we are not doing anything fancy here. If we go back and see, then we have just created three endpoints. So if you have watched the previous video, then you must have understood that what the RTK query is all about. And here we are just using one of its feature, which is the mutation. So let's go back to our TSX file, and inside the TSX file, what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a constant of an contact, and this contact will be the individual contact which I want to create. I'm also running my application on the local development environment. So let's go and see how our application looks. So if I go back and I have this application, if I refresh my page, then we see that we have only two contacts at the moment, the Page Malvia and the Mike J. And the contact API which we are using is I have set up it on the JSON server. Let me show you the JSON server where you will see that we have only two contacts and I'm running my JSON server on the localhost 3006. So if I go back and if we go to localhost 3006, then we will be able to see my server. So let's go here and this will become 3006. All right, so this is the JSON server and we have only two contacts, so that's why we are only seeing two records. So if you don't know about how to create the JSON server and how to make the fake APIs, then I have a video on it. You can click on the card above and jump to it directly. So let's go back, and what we are going to do here is that we are going to create three buttons which we will use to add contact, update contact and delete contact. And here we are going to create a contact object which we will add. So we are going to have the ID. So let me add the ID and I'm going to give the ID as 3 And then the next thing we are going to have is, what I will do is I'm just going to do a copy paste. So let me copy this and let me add it here. So I'm going to do a copy paste and let's change the value. So this will become 3 and this will become Nikesh. All right, and let's change the email. So I'm going to change the email as nix@gmail.com. So now we have the contact object and how we can make use of the add contact API which we have created here. So this is the add contact API. So what we will do is, let's go back, and here we are going to make use of a constant. So let's have a constant, and this constant will be equals to the use add contact mutation. All right, and this is actually going to expose us the endpoint or the method which we have created. So the endpoint was the add contact. All right, now we just have to use this add contact, and how we are going to use this as, I'm going to first have the return my JSX. So let's have the JSX. All right, I'm going to have the empty fragment in the JSX, and then I'm going to create a button. So let's create a button, and inside the button I'm going to have the add contact. All right, and then I'm going to have an on click on this button, and I'm going to have the add handler. So let me have the add handler. All right, so now let's write the definition of this add handler. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to have a constant. I'm going to do a add handler. This will be equals to an arrow function, and let's give me an async here so that I can use the async await. And then I'm going to have the await, and here I'm going to write the add contact. And when we created the add contact endpoint, it actually takes us the argument which is the contact object which we want to create. So this is our contact object. So I'm going to copy this and I'm going to add my contact object here, and then I will save it. All right, so now we see that we don't have any errors in the console log, and let's give a try what actually happens. So I'm going to go here and I'm going to refresh my page first, and I don't see any add contact button, and that is because we have created the component but we haven't used the component in our app component. So let's go here, and what I'm going to do here is I'm going to create a div here, and inside the div I'm going to have the add contact. All right, I will save it, and now let's go and let's see. So now we see that we have the add contact button. Now let's give a try, and what I'm going to do here is I'm going to do an inspect element as well. So if I go to inspect element and if I go to the network tab, then we need to see that whenever we click on the add contact, our API gets called and the contact is added in the list. So let's click on the add contact, and when we click on the add contact, you will see that we made an API request, which was the post, and it gives the response back as 201 created. And if we go in the preview and in the response, then we see that we have the add context being added into our list. So let's go here and let's refresh this. So now if I refresh this, then you see that we have the add context. But if we go here in our application, then we have to refresh the page in order to fetch the new list. So if I refresh the page, then we fetch the new data. But I don't want to refresh my page. So what we can do here is that if we go back, then what we will do is let me have a new contact. So I'm going to change this to 4, and instead of Nikesh, I'm going to change this to Amit this time, and let me have an Amit here. And whenever my contact is added, I need to refresh my list. So to refresh the list, what we can do here is we can make use of a constant equals to, so whenever we want to fetch all the new contacts, we usually use the use contact query. So let me copy this, and I'm going to use this here. So let's use it here, and this contact query actually exposes one more function, which is the refetch. So let me add the refetch here. So now we have the refetch, and we can use this refetch to refetch our contacts. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to simply add a refetch here, and that's it. So this is going to refetch all the data. So now if we go back and if I refresh my list, then when I click on the contact, let me clear it. And when I click on the contact, you will see that the new contact is added and the list is automatically refetched. So this is how we can make use of this refetch. So this solution is not so good solution because let's assume that you're using this use contact query at multiple places. And that doesn't mean that you're going to refetch in all the places. You want to build such a solution that whenever a new list is added, it gets automatically refetched in all the places. So for that, what we are going to do here is we're going to make use of the provides and the invalidate. So let's go to our contact API, and inside this here, what we can make use of a tag type. So let me add a tag here, and we're going to have the tag type. All right, and this tag type will be equals to the entity which we have. So for this case, our entity is the contacts. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to add the contact here. And now why we are doing this is we need to do the auto fetching. We don't have to manually add the fetch function and then fetch the new data. We need the automatic data fetching whenever there is a change in our entity, like whenever there is a change in the context, whether it's a create contact or update contact or delete contact. So let's go to documentation and let's understand what this auto fetching is. So if I go back here and if we see here, then this is the auto fetching, and here you will see that what are the tags, what are the providing tags and invalidating tags. So we are going to use all these three in our example so that we can understand what are they and why we use them. So you can read this documentation, and if you don't understand much about this, then you just follow the video so that you know what is the tags are. There is an example as well. So if I go down, then you will see that they have an example and they have a tag type where you specify the tag type as an entity on which you are making the API calls. So here they have two entities, post and the user. That's why they have post and the user as entities. So let's go back to our code, and we have only one, which is the contact. So we have added the contact, and what we are going to do is whenever you make use of a queries, instead of mutation, you need to provide the tags. So let me add the provides tag. So I'm going to write the provides, and then I'm going to have the tag, and this provide tags will either have a string of array or it can also have a callback function. So if we go to the documentation and if we read it, then we will know that what this provide tags argument, it can either be an array of string such as the post, or it can also have an object or a callback function. So for our case, what we are going to do here is we are simply going to have an array of string. So for our case, we have the array, and then I'm going to have the contact here. And I can use the same in my other endpoint, which is the contact, where we fetch the individual contact. So let me add the provide here as well. So we have to use this provides tag if we are using the query. But for the mutations, instead of this, we need to make use of the invalidate tags. So let me copy this, and then I'm going to add the invalidate tags here. So let me have the here. And here, instead of this, I'm going to have the invalidate, and we are going to have the invalidate tags. All right. So I'm going to copy this and I'm going to add it in all my mutations endpoints. So let me add it here as well. And let me add it here as well. All right. So I have added it. And if we want to read about the invalidate tags, then you can read it here, that what are these invalidate tags are. It's very similar to the provides tag. The only difference is you use the provide tags when you make the query, but you use the invalidating tags when you actually use the mutations. All right, so now let's go back to our application and I'm going to refresh it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to manually delete these newly created contacts. So if I refresh it, then we should be able to see only two objects. Now what I'm going to do here is that if I click on the add contact, then it's going to add the contact. So let's go to our contact object. So I'm going to go to TSX, and here I'm going to just make the ID as 3. All right, and now let's add it. So if I going to let's do an inspect element. All right, and I will go to the network tab, and now if I click on the contact, then you will see that the contact is added and the newly created contact is also automatically auto fetched, and that is because we have used the provide tag here. So if we go here, then we will see that we have added the provide tag here. All right, now let's create two more buttons to update the contact and to delete the contact. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to copy this and I'm going to add it 2 times. The first one will be the update handler. So let me add the update handler, and the second one will be delete handler. So let me add the delete handler, and let's change this to update, and let's change this to delete. All right, and I'm going to copy this 2 times so that we can have for the delete and the update. So I'm going to change this to update, and this will become update contact, and I'm going to change this to delete. So let me have the delete, and I'm going to change this to delete as well. So let me have the delete here. All right. And whenever we delete a contact, we just need to add the ID. So I'm going to have the contact.id here. All right. For updating the contact, we have to pass the complete contact. So if we go to the context API, then you will see that we need to pass the complete contact object. So that's fine. And for the update and delete, yeah, for add handler, it's already working. So what we are going to do here is I'm going to remove this refetch because we don't want it. And I'm going to do a copy of this and I'm going to add it 2 times. This will become the update contact, and here we just need to add the update here. All right, so we have the update contact mutation hook. Similarly, we have the delete. So let me have the delete and let's change this to delete. All right, so we have the add contact, update contact, and delete contact. And what I'm going to do here is, in order to update a contact, I need to have some updated values. So I'm going to have an contact update object, and I'm going to change this to a math updated so that we can see that, yeah, the contact is updated. So this will become the updated. Now let's go and let's test everything. So if I go back here and if I refresh it, then we should be able to see everything, but we are getting an error, and this error is because we haven't imported the use update contact mutation. So let's go here and let's import them, and this will become use update contact mutation, and I'm going to have the use delete contact mutation. All right, so we have it now, we have imported them, and now let's go and let's refresh it. All right, so now if I refresh it, then you will see that we have the 3 contacts, and let's click on the update contact. So when I will click on the update contact, this contact will get updated with the new values and it will get auto fetched. So if I click on the update contact, then you will see that it's updated, it auto fetch, but the values are not visible. So what we are going to do here is if we go back, then we see that for the update, we are still passing the same contact object with no updated values. So for this, I'm going to copy this and I'm going to add it here. All right, I'm going to save it and let's give a try again. So if I refresh my page, then let's clear the browser. And now if I click on the update, then you will see that we have the updated value, Amit updated, and all the contacts are auto fetched. So now if I click on the delete, then it's going to delete the contact with an ID of 3. So if I click on delete, then it's deleted. Let's click on add. We are able to add it, we are able to update it, and we are able to delete it. And all these 3 are happening with the help of the RTK query mutations. And we have also used the tags for auto fetching, which have the provides tag and the invalidates tag. So this is what the RTK query is. This is how you do the CRUD operation in the RTK queries. So that's all I have in this video. I hope you liked the video. A thumbs up is appreciated. You can also connect with me via Facebook or Instagram. You can follow me on Twitter for latest updates. And before you go, don't forget to subscribe the channel and press the bell icon so that you don't miss the videos like this one. I will also add the GitHub link in the description so that you can download it and play around it. Thank you. Thanks for watching.